I arrived at my villa on Monterey Bay with 2 rental agents. The plan was simple, to list the place for lease. But instead of the familiar sound of waves and salt in the air, I found something that made my heart sink. My son-in-law, Ryan Carter, was on vacation with his mistress. While telling my daughter he was at an investors' conference in San Francisco, he turned, lips curling into a smug, practiced smile. "Tell Madison if you want," he said, his voice drawn out, lazy. "She's more afraid of losing me than anything else." I nodded slowly. Then I reached for my phone. But that call wasn't for Madison. It was for someone who could destroy him. Legally, quietly, completely. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. But let me back up and tell you how I got to that moment. Standing in my own doorway, watching my daughter's world collapse before she even knew it was breaking. The October sunlight spilled gold across the bay as I turned into the gravel drive leading to the villa. The 2 agents in the back seat chatted brightly about coastal markets and staging strategies. I'd dreaded this trip for weeks. Jonathan's medical bills had drained our savings, and even 3 years after his passing, I was still wrestling with medical debt. "Mrs. Hale, this house is incredible," said Jennifer, the younger agent. Her stilettos clicked against the oak floor as sunlight poured through the glass wall facing the Pacific. 3 bedrooms, an ocean-facing veranda. We'll have no problem finding long-term tenants. My hand trembled slightly around the keys. This house held 40 years of memories. Jonathan had proposed to me on that same deck. Madison had taken her first photograph in this very living room. But memories don't pay bills, and at 65, I had to be practical. "The master bedroom has the best view," I said, sliding the key into the lock. "Jonathan always said he wanted to wake up to the ocean every—" I stopped mid-sentence. Voices drifted down from upstairs, a man's and a woman's, low, intimate, unmistakable. The blood in my veins turned to ice. "Is anyone supposed to be here, Mrs. Hale?" asked Robert, the senior agent, checking the showing schedule. I shook my head, motioning for them to stay back. The voices grew clearer, coming from the master bedroom. A man's deep laugh, a woman's breathy giggle. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs, the old oak planks groaning beneath each step. The bedroom door was ajar. Through the gap, I saw movement on my bed. Jonathan's Kyoto silk quilt, twisted around 2 bodies. The man's back was to me, but I knew those broad shoulders, that sculpted posture, that carefully gelled hair. Ryan Carter. The woman beneath him was not my daughter. She was younger, blonde, her red painted nails sliding through Ryan's hair. "When do you have to be back in San Francisco?" she asked, breathless. "Not until Sunday night," Ryan murmured, kissing along her neck. "Told Madison I had that Seaside Capital conference. She never asks questions." My vision blurred with rage. Madison was back in Santa Monica, probably roasting his favorite lemon rosemary chicken, while he was here defiling the very bed where her father once slept beside me. "Ryan Carter," I said, my voice steady and sharp. I pushed the door open. For a split second, his face cycled from confusion to recognition to panic. The young woman grabbed the quilt to cover herself. "Mrs. Hale, I can explain," Ryan stammered, clutching a pillow. "Can you?" I crossed my arms, surprised by the calm in my own tone. "Explain why you're in my villa, in my bed, with a woman who isn't my daughter?" The woman scrambled for her clothes. "I should go," she whispered. "Stay right there, Lila," I said slowly, my voice like ice. The shock in her eyes confirmed everything. I knew exactly who she was. Lila Perez, 29, PR coordinator at Seaside Capital Partners, the same firm where Ryan worked. Madison had mentioned her once, saying Ryan couldn't stop praising the woman's communication skills. Now everything made sense. The shock in Ryan's eyes dissolved, replaced by something worse. Brazen arrogance. "Listen," he said, his voice flat, cold. "What Madison doesn't know won't hurt her. This doesn't change anything, does it?" I stepped closer, my tone calm, measured. "My daughter loves you. She covers for every late night, every business trip, every time you make her feel small." "Madison's fine," he snapped, pulling on his pants. "She's got everything she wants. House, car, wardrobe, Amex card. She's not exactly suffering. His indifference made my stomach turn. She wants your love, Ryan, your respect, your faithfulness. He laughed, actually laughed. Faithfulness? Come on, Mrs. Hale. Madison's gotten soft. She stopped trying years ago. Look at Lila. He gestured toward the trembling young woman. She knows how to appreciate what she has. Get out, I said quietly. My voice left no room for argument. Wait, Ryan said, switching to that slick, transactional tone he used when closing deals. You need money, don't you? This villa's worth, what, $2.5 million? Madison mentioned you were thinking of renting it out. Maybe we can work something out. I stared at him without replying. By work something out, he continued, I mean I could help list the property through my network. Find a solid tenant fast. Naturally, there'd be a small fee involved. You just forget what you saw. I kept watching him, long enough for the confidence to flicker in his eyes. This man had isolated my daughter from her friends, from her family, from herself, and made her believe she was lucky to have him. Or, he added, his voice hardening, you could tell Madison, go ahead. She won't leave me. She doesn't have the guts. She knows she'll never find anyone else who'd tolerate her moods. That was the moment something inside me snapped into focus. Not anger, clarity, the final puzzle piece falling into place. You're right, I said softly. I should tell Madison. Relief flashed across his face. Good. I knew you'd be reasonable. I took out my phone. But instead of calling Madison, I scrolled to another number, one I hadn't used in over 2 years. Wait, Ryan said, his voice starting to shake. Who are you calling? I smiled as the line connected. Hello, Daniel. It's Eleanor Hale. I held Ryan's gaze. Remember when you told me to call if I ever noticed anything suspicious at Seaside Capital Partners? The color drained from Ryan's face. Who the hell is Daniel? I kept my voice even. Yes, Daniel, that's right. Ryan Carter. Seems your instincts were correct. I paused, listening. Perfect. I'll send the photos within the hour. Photos? Lila gasped. I held up my phone, the screen glowing with the images I'd taken while they were too distracted to notice. It's amazing what a smartwatch and a camera can capture these days. Ryan lunged toward me, but I stepped back into the hallway. I wouldn't do that if I were you, I said quietly. Agent Brooks doesn't take kindly to people who threaten his friends. You're bluffing, Ryan whispered, his voice trembling. You don't know anyone by that name. The truth was, I'd known Special Agent Daniel Brooks for years. He'd served with Jonathan at the naval base in San Diego, and after joining the FBI, he kept in touch. In recent months, he'd told me to call if I ever noticed anything odd at Seaside Capital Partners. Irregular transfers, phantom investment funds, bonuses that never appeared on payroll. I'd told him I hadn't seen anything, but that was before I noticed Ryan's so-called business trips to Monterey. The designer invoices he said were gifts for Madison, and the luxury car he bragged was a company reward. I looked straight at him. Pack your things, I said. Both of you. I'm giving you 10 minutes before I call the police for trespassing. This is ridiculous, Ryan growled, but he was already grabbing his clothes. Madison's going to hear about this. She'll never forgive you for destroying her marriage. Her marriage is already destroyed, Ryan. She just doesn't know it yet. Lila dressed quickly, edging toward the door. I stepped in front of her. Not so fast, Ms. Perez. You and I need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, she whispered. Oh, I think you do. I tilted my head slightly. I know this isn't your first visit here. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, has incredibly sharp eyes. She calls it bird watching, but what she really does is take notes on every kind of unusual bird that lands on my porch. Lila went pale. You don't understand, she stammered. Ryan told me he was separated, just waiting for the papers. Did he? I glanced at Ryan, who was fumbling with his buttons. What else did he tell you? He said his wife was unstable, that she had emotional issues, that a divorce right now would break her. Her voice was barely a whisper. I pressed my lips together, almost feeling sorry for her. Almost. Lila, my daughter is a pediatric psychologist. On weekends, she teaches art to children with autism. The only thing she can't handle is betrayal, especially when it's standing right in front of her. Ryan stepped closer, his face red and tight. You'll regret this, Eleanor. Madison depends on me. Without me, she's nothing. I think we're about to find out who really depends on whom. He shoved my hand away and Lila followed him like a frightened shadow. I trailed them downstairs. In the foyer, the two real estate agents stood frozen near the door, faces drained of color. I'm so sorry, Jennifer stammered. We had no idea. It's not your fault, I said evenly. Move the listing to next week. I have some family matters to handle. They nodded quickly and slipped out. I stayed on the wooden deck, looking through the white columns as Ryan and Lila loaded their bags into a silver Tesla, the same car he'd told Madison was a company vehicle, for office use only. The wind from the bay carried the scent of salt and lavender from the back garden. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel Brooks. Got your message. Perfect timing. Can we meet tomorrow morning? There's a lot to discuss. I replied, of course. And Daniel, I think I have more evidence than we thought. Ryan's car disappeared down the coastal road, leaving only the sound of wind and waves. For the first time in years, I felt something unmistakable, clarity with purpose. For too long, I had watched my daughter shrink under his control. I had seen the light in her eyes dim year after year. Madison used to be fearless, backpacking across Europe, teaching children in Peru, laughing when the wind tangled her hair. Then Ryan came along, convincing her that independence was selfish, that strength was arrogance. But I remember who my daughter truly is. And tomorrow, I'll start fighting to bring that woman back. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Madison's number, then paused. She deserved the truth, but she also deserved the whole truth. If Daniel's investigation was what I suspected, Ryan's betrayal ran deeper than infidelity. I dialed another number. Henderson, it's Eleanor. I was wondering if you might have time to talk about those birdwatching notes you've been keeping. Her gentle laugh came through the line. Still the same, every page dated, timed, and with license plates. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Her words only confirmed what I already knew. Ryan and Lila had been using this villa as their private hideaway for 6 months. Every business trip, every client dinner, every late night at the office. My daughter hadn't just married a cheater. She'd married a thief, a man who used company assets to fund his affair and turned her mother's home into a web of lies. But unlike him, I never underestimated my daughter. Madison was stronger than he would ever know. She just needed to remember that strength, and I would make sure she didn't forget it. The next morning, I met Daniel Brooks at a small cafe near the Monterey County Courthouse. At 58, Daniel still carried the posture of an old cop, sharp gray eyes, sun-darkened hands, and a smile that made people tell him the truth. "Eleanor," he said, standing to hug me lightly, "you look good. You holding up?" "Better now," I said, taking a seat on the cold metal chair. "Tell me about the investigation." Daniel glanced around the cafe, then leaned forward. "Seaside Capital Holdings has been under surveillance for 8 months. We found evidence of an internal embezzlement network, sophisticated, involving at least 4 employees. The coffee cup trembled slightly in my hand. "And Ryan?" "Not just involved, Eleanor. He's running it." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "The operation is built around fake investment accounts," Daniel continued. "They record real profits on paper, but quietly siphon the difference before it hits the system. Every statement looks clean. No client ever suspects a thing." I thought of the new Tesla, the renovated kitchen, the weekend getaways he flaunted online. "How much money are we talking about?" Daniel opened a thick folder. Roughly $2.3 million over 3 years. I gripped my cup tighter. $2.3 million. Enough to buy back a lifetime of trust. "The brilliance of the scheme," Daniel said, "is that it looks legal on paper. Ryan's careful. But lately he's been getting greedy, living too large. Vacations in Big Sur, Swiss watches, new interiors for their home. Madison thought he got promoted, I murmured. He did, but his salary doesn't cover even half of what he's spending. Daniel slid the yellow folder toward me. Here's what we've traced: bank transfers, credit card statements, property records. I flipped through the pages. Napa getaway, $8,200. Diamond necklace, $15,000. Home renovation fee, $47,000. All from the same source, stolen funds. Daniel, Madison has no idea. We don't think so. Her financial records are spotless. Every big-ticket item came from his accounts. I looked down at the coffee, watching the foam collapse into dark liquid. What happens when you catch him? Daniel's expression hardened. We can't arrest him yet. We need him to make a mistake. He's meticulous, but we think he's preparing to disappear. Disappear? New identity, offshore accounts. We've seen it before. White-collar criminals always have an exit plan. I stared out the window. The morning light over the coast shimmered cold and metallic. And he'll leave Madison to carry the fallout. Possibly. Her name's on a few property deeds and joint accounts. Even if she's innocent, she could be dragged in. Anger flared through me. Ryan hadn't just betrayed my daughter's love. He'd built her into his shield. What do you need me to do? Daniel studied me. We need him to slip up. If you can push him off balance, he'll make an error. We need something traceable, fresh. I leaned back, a small smile forming. I know exactly what his weakness is. Eleanor, this isn't a game, Daniel warned quietly. If he suspects you, he won't. He trusts himself too much. That afternoon, I drove to Madison's house. The driveway curved through a manicured neighborhood, emerald lawns, white walls, shining glass. Their home looked perfect. Too perfect. Perfection built on lies. Madison opened the door wearing her nurse's scrubs, hair tied in a loose bun. She looked tired, older than 32. Mom, what a surprise. Come in. I hugged her, inhaling the lavender scent of the lotion she'd used since college. I was nearby, I lied softly. Thought I'd drop in, see how you're doing. I'm okay, just tired. Work's been rough. Ryan's on another trip. I glanced around the living room. Italian leather chairs, wedding photos on the wall, a crystal vase on the shelf. Everything neat, cold, curated. Still working night shifts? Madison nodded. 2 back-to-back this week, but it's worth it. She smiled weakly. Ryan said he's negotiating a big contract. Right. He does seem busy. I kept my tone neutral. Madison didn't notice. Sometimes I actually feel bad for him, she said softly. He works so hard, gets so stressed. Then he buys me little things like he's trying to make up for it. I looked at her hand, the diamond necklace glinting under the light. It's beautiful, I said quietly. She smiled faintly. He said it was from his bonus. I didn't ask. I just want things to stay peaceful. I wanted to tell her the truth right then, but the words stopped at my throat. Do you remember your senior year in college? I asked. You told me if the world ever tried to break you, you'd stand up, even if it was with one hand. She gave a small, weary laugh. You still remember that? I remember everything you said, back when you still believed in your own strength. My voice was soft, small enough to sound like comfort, sharp enough to feel like warning. Madison lowered her head, twisting her wedding ring. Mom, sometimes I think something's changed. He's distant, avoids eye contact. But then he hugs me, and I think maybe it's all in my head. I smiled gently. Just trust your instincts, Madison. They rarely lie. But she couldn't meet my eyes. Are you real? I asked, the question dropping between us like a pebble into a still pond. For a moment, I caught a flicker of the girl she used to be, the one who stood in a square in Florence and said, I fear nothing when I know I'm right. Ryan told me personal pursuits are selfish while he and I are building a life together, Madison said softly. He's right. I need to focus on our future. What about your future, Madison? What do you actually want? I want what we have. Safety, stability, a beautiful home. Her voice sounded rehearsed, even, airless. "And what does Ryan want?" Her face hardened, defensive. "Why are you asking that?" "Because I love you. And because I've watched you change." "I'm just growing up, Mom. I realized being a dreamer and an artist doesn't pay the bills." I exhaled. "Since when do you care about money?" "Since I learned it's hard to survive without it." She stood up suddenly. "Do you want coffee? I just brewed a fresh pot." I followed her into the kitchen. White marble counters, built-in fridge, the copper kettle gleaming under warm light. Everything expensive. Too perfect. Too cold. "Madison," I asked, "if one day everything falls apart, would you be okay?" She froze. The kettle paused in mid-pour. "What do you mean? Can you stand on your own? Do you have your own account? Your own plan?" "You're scaring me, Mom. Is something wrong? Are you sick?" I shook my head, soft. "I'm fine. I'm just worried you rely too much on someone else." Madison set down the kettle, looked at me, eyes bright and wet. "Ryan takes care of me. He makes sure I have everything I need." "And what do you really need?" Her composed mask cracked, exposing something fragile beneath. Loneliness. "I need not to worry about money. I need to feel safe. I need to know someone chooses to stay with me." "Oh, sweetheart." I reached out, but she stepped back. "Don't. Please don't look at me like that." "What do you mean?" "Like you pity me." I shook my head. "I don't pity you. I'm proud of you. You're smart, kind. You can do anything. I already am someone. I'm Ryan's wife." Those words cut the air like a knife. The woman who'd been independent, radiant, reduced to an echo of his success. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel Brooks. "We may need to move faster than planned. Can you meet tonight?" I watched Madison. Small shoulders swallowed in the soft light of that expensive kitchen. Everything around her, the paintings, the wine glasses, the Italian espresso machine, made her fragility clearer. Whatever was about to come would shatter this manufactured world. But done right, it could also set her free. That evening I went to the Monterey County Station. Cold fluorescent lights fell on the steel table where Daniel sat. A thick stack of files lay before him, the edges marked with red clips. "We intercepted communications between Ryan and an offshore account," Daniel said without preamble. "He's planning to move the remaining funds and disappear in 2 weeks." 2 weeks? My heart hammered. "What about Madison?" "That's what we have to talk about." He pushed a file toward me. "Ryan's been setting her up as a scapegoat. Joint accounts, forged signatures, property purchases in her name." I opened the file. Madison's signature appeared on documents she never signed. Parallel bank accounts. Credit cards opened in her name. Investment transactions that looked legitimate but funneled to the same chain of accounts. "Part of the stolen company funds flowed through Madison's accounts," Daniel said. "Without exculpatory evidence, she'll be treated as an accomplice." A cold wind ran down my spine. "She could go to prison?" I whispered. "Not if we show she was manipulated, but we need coercion evidence, proof Ryan controlled her." I breathed in. "I can get that." Daniel looked at me, the fluorescent light catching in his eyes. "Eleanor, don't. It's too dangerous. If he suspects you're working with us, he won't." "You don't understand him like I do. He trusts no one but himself." "I understand exactly the kind of man he is." I tightened my grip on my purse, voice steady. "He believes women are weak. He treats kindness as a weakness, and that will make him fall." Daniel leaned back, a mix of admiration and worry in his face. "Do you have a plan?" he asked. I held the yellow file Daniel had given me, stacks of pages that could either save Madison or put us both in danger. "I do." Daniel leaned back in his chair, fingers interlaced. "What are you thinking, Eleanor?" I gave a thin smile. "That Ryan believes Madison is completely under his control, and that I'm just a gentle old woman, easy to scare, easier to buy." I tilted my head, voice slow and sharp. "He's wrong, on both counts." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Specifically?" Tomorrow's Madison's birthday, I said. I'm throwing her a party. A party? A surprise one. My smile faded. I'll invite the old friends Ryan cut out of her life, and a few of his colleagues from Seaside Capital Holdings. Daniel's brow arched. The objective? People talk after a few drinks, and Ryan always needs to be admired. When he has to perform the role of perfect husband, he boasts. And he might slip. That's a lot of might, Daniel said. More than that, I answered. I'll tell him I'm having financial trouble, that I have to sell my Monterey Bay villa fast. I'll ask for his help finding a buyer. Daniel understood instantly. And Ryan can't resist exploiting a situation. Exactly. He'll try to manipulate the sale, maybe offer to help by buying it below market. To do that, he'll need a story, and he'll reveal where the real money's coming from. Daniel waited. It could work, but you'll need to wear a recording device. We need clean evidence. I'll wear it. If he suspects, I'll stop immediately. He nodded. Good. Let's review contingencies. Any sign of danger, you walk out. Understood? Understood. We spent nearly an hour sketching diagrams, camera angles in the dining room, the watch signal, the tiny mic hidden inside the button of my knit coat. Every detail played like a chess move. When I drove home, Monterey was wrapped in fog, streetlights stretching in gold streaks across the windshield. The phone rang. Madison's name appeared. Hi, sweetheart. Her voice was small, cautious. Mom, Ryan said something strange happened at the villa yesterday. Are you okay? I tightened my grip on the wheel. Strange how? He said you were there with some agents. You looked sad. He's worried about you. I smiled faintly. Worried about me. Just sentimental, that's all. You know how attached I am to that place. Yeah. He said he wants to help you find a buyer through his connections. How thoughtful. My tone stayed light. You both think of me. He mentioned you're having financial difficulties. He feels bad for not helping sooner. I could almost see Ryan standing beside her, signaling what to say. Every word arranged to make me sound weak and grateful. I answered evenly. That's actually why I'm calling. I'd like you both to come for dinner tomorrow night. We can discuss the sale and celebrate your birthday. Tomorrow? Madison hesitated. Oh, right. I almost forgot. The fact she'd forgotten her own birthday said everything. Then we should celebrate even more. No restaurant. Come here. I'll cook. Are you sure? Ryan's been really busy lately. I insist. It's been too long since we had a proper family meal. When the call ended, I stayed in the car, listening to the surf in the distance. Tomorrow night, I would begin dismantling the illusion of marriage Ryan had built, and maybe, just maybe, save what was still real in Madison. The next afternoon, my kitchen filled with the scent of beef stew and chocolate cake. I cooked by the old recipe, every step slow, deliberate, like a ritual. It was Madison's childhood favorite, the dish she once called the smell of home. At exactly 6, they arrived. Madison looked radiant in a blue dress, the elegant kind I knew Ryan had chosen. He wore a charcoal suit, a Rolex flashing beneath his cuff, that polished smile already rehearsed. "Oh, Mom," Madison exclaimed, hugging me. "It smells amazing! You didn't have to go through all this trouble." "It's no trouble, sweetheart. It's your birthday." Ryan glanced around the small dining room. "Cozy, Eleanor. Very modest." "Thank you. Not big, but it's home." Tom. I let him see that I caught his undertone and that I couldn't care less. Over dinner, Ryan performed the role of the devoted husband. He poured wine for Madison, told work anecdotes, laughed in perfect rhythm. She smiled along, grateful and tired. They looked like actors in a play they'd long since memorized. I watched quietly, noting every glance, every gesture. When I cut the cake, Ryan tilted his head, voice smooth as honey. "Eleanor, Madison mentioned you've been having some financial trouble." "I wouldn't call it hardship," I said softly, my tone measured so the recorder hidden in my wool coat button caught every word. "Just a bit of adjustment. Owen's medical bills, you know." Ryan nodded, setting down his glass. Of course, a loss like that must be stressful. It is, I smiled faintly. Especially because I need to sell my Monterey Bay villa as soon as possible. I was hoping for market value, but the agent said it might take months. His eyes brightened, that greedy spark he thought he kept hidden. And what's the market these days? Similar homes near Carmel are listed around $400,000, I said slowly, but I'd settle for $350 if it meant a quick sale. That's quite a loss. I don't have many options. Taxes and expenses are getting out of hand. Ryan glanced at Madison. A brief, silent exchange passed between them. You know, I could help. I have some connections in real estate investment. Buyers who pay cash and move fast. I pretended interest. Really? That would be wonderful. What kind of timeline? He leaned forward, voice sliding into the practiced rhythm of a con man. I could call them this week. They act quickly if they see a good opportunity. I swirled my wine. And what sort of opportunity would my house be? Ryan smiled, self-satisfied. Properties they can purchase below market and flip fast. Your villa would be perfect. How far below? If it's cash, no inspections, no financing, maybe $250,000. Madison looked up, startled. $250? That sounds low, Ryan. Sweetheart, he cut in before she could say more. Sometimes you take a small loss. The market's volatile. A bird in the hand, remember? I nodded, feigning thought. You might be right. $250 could ease things for me. I can put you in touch with the right people, he continued smoothly. Of course, there'd be a small finder's fee, 5%. I smiled inwardly. There it was. He couldn't resist profiting from his mother-in-law's supposed weakness. That sounds fair, I said aloud. When can we start? I'll call them tomorrow morning. Cash buyers move fast. You should have paperwork ready. We could close within a week or two. That fast? Cash means no mortgage approvals or lengthy checks. They buy as is. Much simpler. Madison frowned, her voice barely above a whisper. Mom, are you sure? Maybe you should get a second opinion. Ryan turned to her with that patronizing smile. Darling, sometimes older folks need to make practical decisions, not emotional ones. I felt my jaw tighten, but kept the grateful expression. You're so kind, Ryan. I don't know what I'd do without you. As they prepared to leave, Ryan stepped closer, his hand resting on my shoulder. A gesture that might look tender to Madison, but to me, it was a quiet threat. Eleanor, he said softly, I want you to know Madison and I see you as family. We'll always be here to help you navigate these decisions. I appreciate that more than you think, Ryan. Family takes care of family, he pressed, his fingers tightening. Don't forget that. When the door closed, the dining room seemed to grow heavier. I sat down, staring at the untouched birthday cake. The small candle flickered once, then went out. I touched the button on my cardigan. The red light on the recorder still glowed. I called Daniel. He's taken the bait, I said quietly. He'll try to buy the villa for $250 through fake investors, then flip it for market value. Did you record it? Every word. Good. That's enough for property fraud charges. But we need more. We must prove he's moving the stolen money. Don't worry, I said, eyes on the candle wax melting over the table. This is only the first move. The next morning, I called Seaside Capital Holdings directly. Is Mr. Carter in? This is Eleanor Halstead. His voice came smooth as marble. Of course, Mrs. Halstead. How may I help you? I've been thinking about our conversation last night, about selling the house. Wonderful, he said, cheerful. I've reached out to a few contacts. The interest looks promising. Good, but I have a few questions about the process. I'd rather discuss them in person. Absolutely. 2:00 this afternoon. Come by my office. Seaside Capital's headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower overlooking Monterey Bay. When I stepped inside, the place gleamed. Marble floors, abstract art, the scent of expensive cologne mixed with the metallic chill of air conditioning. I walked across the lobby where the company's logo shimmered against black stone, Seaside Capital Holdings, building tomorrow today. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, abstract art worth more than most people's cars. Ryan greeted me right at the elevator, his smile polished to perfection, the kind that had been practiced in front of a mirror. "Eleanor, welcome to my little corner of the financial world," he said, gently closing the glass door behind me. His office was exactly what I expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek black and chrome furniture, and walls lined with photos of Ryan beside men who looked very rich. A shrine to his own imagined importance. "Please, have a seat," he said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his glass desk. "Coffee? Water?" "Coffee would be perfect." As he pressed the call button for his assistant, I noticed the Swiss watch on his wrist, the tailored suit, the Italian shoes polished to a mirror. All of it fed by money justice would soon call by its real name. I tilted my wrist slightly. My smartwatch gave a faint vibration. The recording light was on. "So," Ryan began, settling behind his desk, "what can I answer for you about the sale?" "I'm just wondering about the timeline. You said your investors move fast." "They do," he replied smoothly. "In fact, I already heard back from one this morning. He's very interested." "How interesting? What did he say?" Ryan pulled out a folder, the perfect prop for his little performance. "He's prepared to offer $1,450,000 in cash, closing within 10 days. Last night you mentioned at least 1.4 to 1.5, I said slowly, making sure the mic caught every word. "They're negotiators," he smiled. "Start low, move up, but 1.45 is solid for a quick close. The Monterey Carmel market's sluggish lately." I feigned hesitation. "And your brokerage fee?" "With the speed and full service I provide, 6% is fair," he said without blinking. I did the math in my head. 6% of $1, $45 million, roughly $87,000 straight into his pocket, and another $1.05 million skimmed off the home's true $2.5 million value for his investor to flip. Greed could be measured in percentages. "Sounds fair," I said softly. "But this investor, he's liquid?" "Absolutely. HNWIs, high net worth individuals, always keep cash ready for opportunities like this." "What kind of business is he in?" A brief hesitation. "Import-export. Very successful." "Have you worked with him before?" "A few times. Reliable. Discreet." I nodded as if reciting a quiet prayer. "Ryan, may I be honest?" "Of course. I'm scared. Selling Jonathan's house, making financial decisions alone, it's a lot." His expression softened into what he thought was empathy. "Completely understandable, Eleanor. It's a big decision." "Last night, you said family takes care of family. I wanted to ask if you could handle a bit more for me. Consolidate my accounts, guide my retirement, stocks, savings. Just to simplify everything." His eyes gleamed, the light of a predator spotting movement. "I'd be glad to. Roughly how much are we talking about?" "My portfolio's around 1.2 to 1.5 million. Retirement, long-term stocks, cash. Add the sale proceeds, and I'd like to combine everything for easier management." "That's substantial," he said, twirling his pen. "Consolidation's a smart move. I can place it into Seaside's proprietary products to maximize return." "Like the funds you manage at Seaside Capital Partners?" "Exactly." He turned his monitor toward me, displaying a brochure titled Opportunity Fund, Class A, Priority Tier, promised steady 8 to 12% returns, locked for 18 months. I leaned closer, lowering my voice as though handing him my full trust. "Honestly, Ryan, I worry about Madison. If anything happens to me, I just want her safe. If I sell for $145 million and add my other assets, maybe 2.6 to 3 million total, that's enough for her to live peacefully." "Impressive," he said, clicking his pen. "We can start today. Open a custodial account under Seaside, transfer your retirement and equity holdings. The villa proceeds can wire directly into our escrow account, then I'll allocate it to the Opportunity Fund." Escrow account? I repeated, with the mild uncertainty of an aging woman who just wants to be sure. Ryan was practically salivating. I could see the math running behind his eyes, stealing twice, once from the Monterey Bay Villa sale, and again by siphoning from the consolidated accounts he planned to manage for me. That would definitely secure Madison's future, he said, his voice coated in fake concern. Exactly, I replied, and I've been thinking, maybe you should be the executor of my will, someone I trust to make sure she's cared for properly. He straightened, pleased. I'm honored, he said quickly. Of course, executors are entitled to a standard service fee. I understand. What's fair for an estate this size? Usually 2 to 3% of total assets, he said without blinking. I nodded. So now he planned to steal from my legacy itself. Sounds reasonable. Should we start the paperwork? Absolutely. I can have my assistant draft a preliminary agreement this afternoon. I stood, then paused at the doorway, as if something had just crossed my mind. Oh, one more thing, Ryan. Yes? I've been having trouble with my current financial advisor. He keeps asking strange questions about my spending, wants to verify my larger purchases. It's invasive. Ryan's expression shifted slightly. What kind of questions? About the renovation costs at the villa, a few family gifts. He seems to think I'm spending beyond my means. Ryan gave a short, dry laugh. Some advisors are too cautious. He even suggested I should keep receipts to prove the expenses were legitimate. Can you imagine? As if I have to justify how I spend my own money. That's ridiculous, he agreed, his tone tightening. I told him I don't keep receipts for family gifts. When I give Madison money for something she needs, that's personal, between family. Exactly, Ryan said. Financial arrangements within a family are private matters. I smiled, picking up my purse. Then I'll let you get back to work. When do we move forward with the sale? I'll contact the investor today. We can sign the preliminary agreement tomorrow. Wonderful. And Ryan, thank you for helping. Madison's lucky to have such a thoughtful husband. He smiled, that same polished mask. Madison's my priority, Eleanor. Everything I do is for her. As the elevator doors closed, his reflection gleamed against the polished steel, a man burying himself one word at a time. He didn't know that Major Daniel Pierce had been listening the entire time through the microphone in my coat button. By tomorrow morning, we'd have enough to put Ryan Carter behind bars for a very long time. Only one question remained: how to protect Madison when his world came crashing down, and I already had a plan for that. That evening, I drove to Madison's house unannounced. She was in the backyard, pulling weeds with the tense energy of someone fighting something bigger than soil. Mom? She looked up, breath uneven. What are you doing in here? I needed to talk to you, alone, without Ryan. Her face tightened instantly. Why without Ryan? Because you and I need to be honest. The talk we should have had months ago. Madison removed her gloves, brushing dirt from her knees. Come in. I'll make tea. In the kitchen, she moved with mechanical precision, pouring water, arranging cups, sugar, cream, everything perfect, everything controlled. Madison, when was the last time you painted? Mom, we've talked about that. Humor me. When? She froze, teacup suspended midair. I don't remember. Maybe 2 years ago. And your easel, your brushes? In the garage. Ryan needed the spare room for his office, and that's fine. Fine? His work's more important than yours? Of course. His work is more important than my hobbies. When did your art become a hobby? Madison once painted a sunrise over Monterey Bay, all gold light and endless hope. Tomorrow I would help her find that light again, even if she hated me for it. The next morning, October air swept through the open window, crisp and clear. I put on my best navy suit, the one Jonathan used to say made me look stern and incorruptible. I clipped on the recording device Daniel had given me and set the volume to its lowest setting. At exactly 10 o'clock, Ryan knocked. Briefcase in hand, smile rehearsed to perfection. Eleanor, you look wonderful this morning. Thank you, Ryan. Come in. He sat down in the Bayview living room like he owned the place, spreading a stack of contracts across the coffee table with the poise of a man who had practiced this very performance. "I have great news," he began. "My investor was very impressed with your property file. He's ready to move forward immediately." I leaned forward, pretending excitement. "Immediately? What does that mean?" "If you sign today, we can close tomorrow." "That sounds fast." "Cash doesn't wait, Eleanor. When buyers are ready, they act." Ryan slid a purchase agreement across the table. $1,450,000 cash, as is, no inspection, no contingencies. I pretended to read, letting Daniel's recorder capture every detail. Buyer, Seaside Holdings LLC, a perfect shell company. "And your fee?" 6%, as discussed, roughly $87,000. I lifted the pen, then paused. "Ryan, I need to be certain. The buyer's legitimate, right? I don't want legal trouble." A flicker crossed his face. "Of course. I've worked with him many times. Completely clean money." "Jonathan used to warn me," I said quietly. "Deals that sound too good usually are." He smirked. "Not this one. This is a fair market transaction." I signed the first page, then stopped at the second. "And this escrow clause?" "Standard procedure," he said quickly. "Funds go to a neutral third party until completion." "And the third party is?" "Seaside Capital has its own internal escrow account for transactions like this." "How convenient," I said, signing again. "We believe in simplifying things for our clients," he replied smoothly. I had just reached the final page when the doorbell rang. Ryan frowned. "Expecting someone?" "I don't think so." I glanced toward the window. Daniel Pierce stood outside, flanked by two men in black suits. "Oh my," I breathed. "That's Major Pierce, Jonathan's former associate." "Major?" Ryan's voice cracked. "He drops by from time to time," I said calmly. "Jonathan asked him to look after me." I opened the door with a warm smile. "Daniel, what a pleasant surprise." "Good morning, Eleanor," he said, stepping in. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all. Come in. This is Ryan Carter. He's helping me with some paperwork." Daniel's gaze swept over the contracts spread across the table. "Mr. Carter, at last, we meet." Ryan's face drained. I don't think we have." "Not officially," Daniel said, his tone mild but sharp. "But I've heard quite a bit about you." "From who?" Ryan stammered. Daniel smiled, not kindly. "From multiple sources. Mr. Carter, I need you to step outside with me." Ryan let out a nervous laugh. "Excuse me?" "You're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny." The color vanished from Ryan's face. "That's absurd. You have no idea what you're talking about." "We have recorded conversations, financial documentation, and multiple witness statements," Daniel said evenly, nodding to the agents who stepped in on either side of Ryan. "You have the right to remain silent." As Daniel Pierce read Ryan his rights, I watched the carefully constructed world around that man collapse. Arrogance melted into panic, and panic into desperate calculation. "This is a mistake," he kept repeating, his voice trembling. "I didn't do anything wrong." "Tell that to the judge," Daniel replied, fastening the cuffs around his wrists. "Mrs. Hale," he added, "we'll need you at the station to confirm your statement." "Of course." As they led Ryan away, he looked back at me one last time, hatred sharp in his eyes. "You have no idea what you've just done. Madison will never forgive you." "We'll see," I said softly. When the door closed, I sat alone in the quiet bayfront living room, staring at the unsigned papers. Within hours, Madison would learn that the man she loved was a criminal, and that her mother had helped bring him down. I picked up the phone. Madison answered on the second ring. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Sweetheart, I need you to come here, please." "Mom, you're scaring me. Are you okay?" "I'll explain when you get here. Can you leave work?" "Yes, I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, Madison stepped through the door, still in her hospital scrubs. "What happened? Are you hurt? Are you sick? Sit down, darling. Oh God, Mom, do you have cancer? Heart problems? I'm fine, but we need to talk about Ryan. Her face hardened instantly. About Ryan? He was arrested this morning. The air thickened, unmoving, heavy. Madison stared at me. Arrested? For what? Embezzlement. Financial fraud. He's been stealing from his company for years. No, that's not possible, Madison whispered. He makes good money. He's successful. That money was stolen, sweetheart. Everything you've been living on came from it. No, Madison shot to her feet, pacing toward the window. There has to be some mistake. I reached for the folder Daniel had shown me. Bank statements, reports, evidence. It's all here. $2 million taken over 3 years. Madison's knees buckled. I caught her before she fell and eased her back into the chair. $2 million? She breathed. So that means the house, the car, the jewelry, all of it was stolen money. Her voice broke. Then, I'm going to jail. No. The investigators know you're an unknowing victim. Victim? Madison looked up at me, eyes wild. I'm his wife. I drove that car. I wore that jewelry. How am I a victim? Because you didn't know where the money came from. But I should have. I should have asked. I knelt beside her. Ryan's a master manipulator. He made you believe you were lucky to have him. Maybe I was lucky, she said weakly. Maybe I can't live without him. Her voice shattered something in me. Sweetheart, you're stronger than you think. You just forgot. Strong people don't get fooled for years. Smart people do, when the liar is good enough. And Ryan was very good. Silence filled the room. Madison stared into her teacup, then looked up. How did you know? How did you find out? The question I dreaded most. I caught him with someone else. What? At the villa yesterday morning. He was there with his assistant, Chloe. Madison's composure broke. She collapsed into sobs, the sound tearing through the house. How long? I don't know. At least a few months. So, while I was cooking his favorite dinner, pressing his shirts, believing every late-night story about work, he was sleeping with someone else. Yes, sweetheart, I whispered. In my house, in my bed. Yes. Madison's sobs hardened into something sharper. Fire. That bastard. That lying, thieving, cheating bastard. There's more, sweetheart. Madison looked up, her face streaked with tears. More? He tried to set you up. Your name's on contracts you never signed. There are fake bank accounts in your name. He was planning to disappear and leave you holding the blame. Fury burned behind her eyes. How do you know all that? Major Daniel Pierce, your father's former colleague, has been investigating Ryan's firm for months. When I told him what I saw at the Bay Villa, we started gathering evidence. You investigated my husband. I was protecting you. Madison rose to her feet. Not from fear this time, but resolve. Where is he now? In custody. For now. He could make bail, but all assets are frozen. Good. I hope he rots there. Relief swelled inside me. Anger meant she was fighting again. Madison, there's something else. The villa, the car, the accounts, everything will be seized for review. I figured. So where do I live now? Here, with me, for as long as you need. Madison let out a short, hollow laugh. So I'm back to square one, 32 years old, living with my mother. No, I said gently. You're starting over. What's the difference? My whole life, turns out it was all a lie. Not all of it. Your work at the hospital, your friends, your art, those were real. Madison wiped her eyes. Art. Ryan said it was pointless. Ryan made you believe many things that weren't true. For the first time that morning, Madison looked thoughtful instead of broken. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Why didn't you just tell me about the affair? Why go through all this, the investigation, the setup? Because if I had told you, you would have blamed yourself. You'd have tried to fix it, gone to therapy, fought to save the marriage. But this way, you know the whole truth. Ryan wasn't just unfaithful. He's a criminal who would have destroyed your life to save his own. Madison nodded slowly. So there's nothing left to save. No marriage, no trust, nothing. She took a deep breath, her shoulders squaring, the faint outline of the strong woman she used to be. All right, what do we do next? 3 days later, I found Madison in the garage, surrounded by old canvases and dust-covered paint jars. Find something interesting? I asked, setting a mug of coffee beside her. I forgot I painted this, she said, holding up a portrait of Ryan from the early days of their marriage, when she'd still seen him through soft, rose-colored light. What are you going to do with it? Madison thought for a moment, then opened a tube of black paint. Therapy, she said simply. I watched her squeeze the paint over Ryan's painted face, then drag a palette knife hard across the canvas, scraping away every line until nothing remained but darkness. Better? I asked. Much. She wiped her hands on an old rag. I've made up my mind. I'm filing for divorce. I'm taking back my maiden name, and I'm testifying against him in court. Are you sure, sweetheart? Testifying won't be easy. Mom, he stole $2 million and tried to make me the scapegoat. I want everyone to know exactly who he is. There was a steadiness in Madison's voice that reminded me why I had loved my daughter from the very beginning. There's one more thing, she said. I've been looking at a few apartments around Monterey, but every decent one wants first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. I don't have enough. What about your savings? They're frozen, along with the other accounts. The FBI said it could take months to determine which funds are clean and which are tied to the embezzlement. You can stay here for as long as you need. I know, but I need to stand on my own again. I've depended on other people for too long. I knew that feeling too well. What if I co-sign the lease, just until your finances clear? You don't have to do that, Mom. It's not about having to, Madison. I'm offering. She stepped forward and hugged me. For the first time in years, I felt my daughter, not the reduced, quiet version Ryan had shaped, but her, full and warm and real. There's something else, I said. Daniel called this morning. Ryan's lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal. Madison looked up. What kind of deal? Reduced sentence. In exchange for returning the stolen money and giving up the names of his partners, the prosecutor wants to know if you'd be willing to give a victim impact statement. Madison's jaw tightened. What should I say? The truth. How it felt to be betrayed. What it's like to realize your life was built on lies. Will it help keep him in prison longer? It might. Then yes. Absolutely yes. That afternoon, we drove up to downtown Santa Cruz to meet the prosecutor. Madison dressed in a navy suit that made her look professional, composed, strong. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Morgan, a sharp woman in her 40s, greeted us with a firm handshake. Ms. Carter, thank you for coming. I understand this must be difficult. Madison adjusted her blazer slightly. Actually, it's Ms. Hale. I've filed to restore my maiden name. Sarah smiled. Of course, Ms. Hale. Can you tell me about your ex-husband's behavior in recent years, particularly any signs of financial control or restrictions on your independence? Madison took a slow breath. He started with charm, said he wanted to protect me, to build a future for both of us. Then slowly, he cut me off from friends, convinced me to give up painting, and took complete control of our joint accounts. Did he ever make you feel inadequate? Sarah asked gently. Always. He told me I was bad with money, too naive to make big decisions. And I believed him. He was confident, successful. It was easy to think he was right. And your nursing career? Madison gave a thin, bitter smile. He tolerated it, said I should focus on our home instead of caring for strangers. I sat quietly, watching my daughter speak. Her voice was stronger now, her back straight. She was no longer the fragile woman who'd sat in my living room 3 days ago. She was fighting back. Every word weighted, deliberate. When Madison finished, Sarah nodded slowly. Ms. Hale, If you agree to testify, your statement will be crucial in securing the conviction. I'm ready. It won't be easy. The defense will try to paint you as someone who knew and stayed silent. Madison met her gaze head on. Let them try. I have nothing to hide. After we left the prosecutor's office, we walked along the Monterey shoreline. The sunset shimmered over the water like molten gold. Madison was quiet for a while, then asked softly, "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you know I was strong enough to handle all this?" I stopped, turned to face her. "Because you're my daughter. And because I remember who you were, before Ryan made you believe you had to be small." Madison smiled faintly. "I don't feel strong. I feel angry, ashamed, and scared." Anger can be strength if you aim it in the right direction, and fear just means you understand what you're up against. Madison lowered her gaze, her voice trembling slightly. "If I'm scared, that means I'm still alive, doesn't it?" I smiled. "Not just alive, Madison. Awake." We kept walking along the coastal path, the waves steady and rhythmic beside us. In the soft evening light, something about my daughter looked different. The way she moved, the way her shoulders no longer curled inward. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How do you know I'm strong enough to handle all of this?" I stopped and turned to face her. "Because you're my daughter, and because I remember who you were before Michael convinced you to be less. You don't feel strong. You feel angry, humiliated, and scared. Anger can be strength if you know how to channel it properly. And being scared only means you're smart enough to understand what's at stake." Madison nodded, gazing out over the Monterey Harbor, where white boats swayed gently in the bay wind. "I want to start painting again," she said suddenly. "That's wonderful. Not just as therapy in the garage anymore, Mom. I want to study properly again, take classes, maybe even try selling a few pieces." "What will you paint?" Madison smiled, a real smile, the first I'd seen since everything began. "Freedom," she said. "I want to see what freedom looks like on canvas." The trial began on a clear, cold morning in November. I sat in the front row of the Santa Cruz County courtroom, watching as Madison stepped up to the witness stand. She wore a light gray dress, simple in cut, the kind that made her look both fragile and unbreakable. Ryan sat at the defense table, stripped of everything he once used to project control. 3 weeks in county lockup had drained the polish from him. What remained was small, pale, and brittle. "Please state your name for the record," the prosecutor said. "Madison Hale." "Ms. Hale, you were married to the defendant for 7 years, correct?" "Yes." "During that time, were you aware your husband was embezzling funds from his company?" "No, I had no knowledge of any illegal activity." Ryan's defense attorney, a tall man in a dark suit, the kind who specialized in white-collar crimes, stood for cross-examination. I held my breath. "Ms. Hale, is it true that you lived a lifestyle far beyond your personal income?" "I believed my husband was successful in business." "But you never questioned where the money came from? The luxury vacations, the jewelry, the $60,000 kitchen renovation?" Madison's voice was steady. "He told me it was bonuses and company profit. I believed him." "You believed him so completely that you never checked a bank statement, never asked to see tax returns, never questioned why he made every financial decision alone?" "He convinced me I was terrible with money, that it was all too complicated for me to understand." "So you chose ignorance instead of responsibility?" A tiny crack appeared in Madison's calm. I saw the familiar spark ignite in her eyes. "I chose to trust my husband. That isn't willful ignorance." "But any reasonable person would—" "Objection," the prosecutor interrupted. "Sustained," the judge said. "Counsel, don't lead the witness." The defense lawyer tried a few more lines, but Madison didn't waver. She admitted she'd believed Ryan, that she'd enjoyed the comfort he provided, but she had never known that money came from crime. When she finally stepped down from the stand, I wanted to stand and applaud. She was everything I knew my daughter could be, honest, composed, and unashamed of once having loved the wrong man. But the true climax came when James Morrison, Ryan's former business partner, was called to testify. "Mr. Morrison," the prosecutor began, "how long have you known the defendant?" 12 years. We started together at Coastal Capital Partners. Were you aware of Mr. Carter's embezzlement activities? James shifted uneasily in his seat. I started to suspect something about 2 years ago. What made you suspicious? Ryan's lifestyle didn't match his salary. He drove luxury cars, vacationed in Maui, wore a watch worth my annual income. Did you report those suspicions to compliance or to the board? No. That word hung in the courtroom like a hollow echo. Sarah Morgan stepped closer to the witness stand. Why not, Mr. Morrison? He swallowed hard. Honestly, I was afraid. Ryan had influence. He knew how to manipulate people, even me. Sarah nodded slowly, then turned toward the jury. Fear is understandable, but silence, that's what let him continue. James lowered his head, his voice breaking. I know, and I regret it. Why not? For the first time, James looked straight at Ryan. Because he offered me a cut. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Even prosecutor Sarah Morgan froze for a moment. Mr. Morrison, are you saying you participated in the defendant's financial crimes? No. I'm saying he tried to recruit me. He showed me the flowchart, how the money moved through temporary funds. He promised I could make an extra $50,000 a year with almost zero risk. And how did you respond? I said no, but I didn't report him either. Why not? Because I was afraid. Ryan made it clear that if anyone tried to expose him, he had a backup plan. What kind of plan? He said there were files that could implicate innocent people at the firm. If an investigation ever started, those files would be leaked to the press. Did he mention any specific names? James hesitated, then looked toward Madison, sitting in the gallery. He said his wife's name was on enough documents to put her in prison for 20 years. The courtroom exploded in murmurs. Ryan's defense attorney shouted objections, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Everyone now understood. Ryan wasn't just an embezzler. He had planned to frame his own wife to save himself. During recess, Madison found me in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. Mom, did you hear that? He was planning to ruin me from the start, not just abandon me when he got caught. Destroy me. I heard, sweetheart. Madison trembled. How could I have been so blind? How could I have married someone that cruel? I placed a hand on her shoulder. Ryan is a sociopath. He manipulated dozens of people, not just you. Believing him wasn't a weakness, Madison. It was proof you were capable of love. I don't think I'll ever trust anyone again. You don't have to decide that today. Right now, all you need to do is get through this trial. I knew the damage he'd done went far beyond money. He had stolen Madison's ability to trust her own instincts. That night, as we sat in the living room surrounded by court documents, Madison said something that stunned me. I've decided to write a book. A book? About financial abuse in marriage, about how smart, capable women are gradually controlled without even realizing it. That's a powerful idea. I want them to see the signs I ignored, to know they're not alone, and they're not stupid. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. In that moment I understood. Ryan's greatest crime wasn't the money he stole. It was convincing a brilliant woman that she was worthless. But he had failed. Madison was still intelligent, still kind. Only now, she was angry enough to fight back. The predator had awakened the warrior. The jury took only 6 hours to return, guilty on all counts. Ryan Carter was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution. As the officers led him away in handcuffs, Ryan turned and looked at Madison one last time. But instead of the broken woman he once controlled, he saw someone calm, composed, unafraid. How do you feel? I asked as we left the courthouse. Like I can finally breathe for the first time in years, Madison said softly, her voice light as the wind off the bay. 6 months later, I stood at the back of a small gallery in Monterey, watching my daughter host her first solo exhibition. The paintings were extraordinary, bold, luminous, pulsing with pain and release. The centerpiece was titled, "Breaking the Chains," a woman emerging from a dark web into golden light over the sea. It sold within minutes of the opening. "Mom, come here," Madison called, waving me over to a man in his 50s wearing a dark brown jacket. "Mom, this is Dr. Marcus Webb. He's been following my story and wants to discuss something with me." Dr. Webb shook my hand warmly. "Mrs. Hale, your daughter is remarkable. Her insight into financial abuse could help thousands of women." "What kind of help?" I asked. "I run a nonprofit organization here in Monterey. We provide legal and financial counseling for victims of financial control. Madison has agreed to join our board of directors and help design educational programs for women trapped in financial dependence." I looked at my daughter, her face radiant, her eyes bright with the confidence I hadn't seen since her UC Berkeley days. "That's perfect," I said. "Isn't it, Mom?" Madison smiled. "I think I've finally found my real purpose." After the opening night, the two of us walked along the Monterey Bay path, the same spot where, months earlier, we'd talked about freedom. "Mom," Madison said softly, "I got a call today from a publisher in San Francisco. They want me to write the book I mentioned." Hi. "That's wonderful news. Even more than that, it proves everything I went through means something, that my voice actually matters." We stopped by the stone bench overlooking the water, the place where Benjamin had proposed to me 40 years ago. The moonlight shimmered over the bay, scattering like 1,000 silver fragments. Everything felt possible again. "Madison," I whispered, "I need to ask you something. Do you forgive me? For investigating Ryan? For not telling you right away about his affair?" Madison took my hand and squeezed it tightly. "Mom, you saved me. If you hadn't done what you did, I'd probably be in prison right now, and Ryan would be living free somewhere on the Mediterranean coast." I laughed softly. "I was afraid you'd hate me for ruining your marriage." "You didn't ruin anything. Ryan did. The day he betrayed our vows. Now I'm free. Free to be myself, not the version someone else drew for me." We sat in silence, listening to the soft rhythm of waves brushing the rocks. I thought about the past year, how it had begun with me as a widowed woman buried under debt, watching my daughter fade beneath another person's shadow. And now it ended with the house fully paid off, the FBI recovering $240,000 from Ryan's accounts, and, most importantly, Madison reborn, strong, creative, and free. The criminal was exactly where he belonged. But the real victory wasn't money or justice on paper. It was seeing my daughter paint again, laugh again, dream again. "You know what the best part is?" Madison asked, her voice playful for the first time in years. "What's that?" "Ryan thought he was clever, untouchable. He believed he could manipulate everyone forever, and in the end, he was destroyed by the two women he thought were weak and useless." I couldn't help but laugh. I wonder if he's realized that yet. Oh, I'm sure he has. 12 years in prison is plenty of time for reflection. As we walked back to the parking lot beneath the line of palms, Madison stopped and turned toward me. "Mom, I just realized something." "What is it?" "I'm happy, truly happy. I'd forgotten what that felt like." "Good," I said. "You deserve it, Madison." She smiled. "So do you. When was the last time you went on a date?" I laughed aloud. "Madison Hale, are you trying to play matchmaker for your 64-year-old mother?" "Maybe. There's a doctor at Santa Cruz General. About your age, widowed, loves art, and has a great sense of humor. We'll see." "That's not a no." "No," I said, smiling. "It's not." On the drive home, I looked out the car window at the lights glimmering along the coastal highway. I thought about everything we'd been through, the sleepless nights, the fear, and then the awakening. Sometimes protecting the people you love means choosing the harder path. Sometimes it means letting them hate you for a while, so they can love themselves forever. Ryan Carter had tried to steal more than money. He had tried to take my daughter's identity, her confidence, her future, but he had misjudged the strength that runs through the women of the Hale family. We may bend, but we do not break. And when we fight to win. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters.